Jon Snow. When my husband brought that baby home from the war, I couldn't bear to look at him. I didn't want to see those brown stranger's eyes staring off at me. So I prayed to the gods. Take him away. Make him die.
CATELYN Stark is one of the most hated characters in the A Song of Ice and Fire narrative, and it's mainly because of scenes like this one. Many fans despise CATELYN because of her perceived mistreatment of Jon Snow, and the fact that she often seems to despise him and speak ill of him, even though Jon didn't even do anything wrong to her. Even in this scene, she openly expresses her hatred for him, even though Jon was just a little baby who couldn't have done anything to offend her except exist. For many fans, it's scenes like this that solidify her as an unjust villain, especially in contrast to the sympathetic figure of Jon himself. But such judgments often overlook the deeper complexities of CATELYN's character. Her resentment towards Jon and the controversial decisions she makes throughout the series become far more understandable if you view them through the lens of a mother who has to protect her children in the harsh and unforgiving world of Westeros. This society, with its rigid traditions and expectations, often forces CATELYN into a corner, where difficult, even seemingly harsh, choices are the only options she believes will safeguard her children.
Killing Jaime Lannister would not buy life for your children. But returning him to King's Landing may buy life for mine.
When considered within the context of her societal role and the dangers surrounding her family, her decisions, although they're harsh, are not the product of malice, but rather the result of a mother's desperation to protect her own children. So rather than seeing CATELYN Stark as a villainous character, a closer look at her actions actually reveals her to be a deeply misunderstood character, one who is driven by love and fear, and who is forced to make impossible choices in a world that doesn't offer easy answers. To understand the depth of CATELYN's resentment towards Jon, we must first understand the personal pain and dishonor his existence has caused her. In Westeros, many noblemen often have bastards that they've fathered on common women, but most of these children are kept away from their main families, raising them discreetly without their wives knowing about them. This is important because it's a good way of taking care of the child without dishonoring your family by acknowledging the fruits of your infidelity as a man. Even Robert Baratheon does this with his son, Gendry, when he ensures that he is well taken care of, even though he never acknowledges him publicly. However, the fact that Ned Stark made the decision to bring Jon home, raise him alongside his true-born children, and then insist that he be called his son was actually a deeply humiliating and dishonorable act towards CATELYN in this society. When Ned introduced Jon Snow into their home, he unknowingly humiliated CATELYN whether he intended to or not. Jon was literally a constant living reminder of Ned's betrayal of his marriage vows, one that the whole world could see. In A Game of Thrones, Ned himself admits this to Robert when he says, "I dishonored myself, and I dishonored CATELYN in the sight of gods and men." By raising Jon in their household, Ned essentially forced Cat to endure ongoing social shame, the subject of gossip and rumors throughout all the Seven Kingdoms. The coldness that she felt towards Jon wasn't just a simple dislike. It was tied to a profound personal wound that was caused by her husband. Every time she looked into Jon's stark grey eyes, or heard him referred to as Ned's bastard, it likely enforced the humiliation she felt, along with her feelings of inadequacy and hurt. And in addition to this, Ned never gave CATELYN closure about Jon's mother. She had to learn of Wyler's name through gossip and rumors, and even then, when CATELYN tried to press Ned for answers, he snapped at her, forbidding her to ever mention the name again. In A Game of Thrones, she remembers, "That was the only time in all their years that Ned had ever frightened her. Never ask me about Jon," he said, "cold as ice. He is my blood, and that is all you need to know. This memory is something that's still fresh in CATELYN's mind, and the fact that the question of Jon's mother was never answered only left her with unresolved jealousy and many unanswered questions. She basically had to silently bear the burden of Ned's secret, while shouldering the public humiliation that it also brought to her on a daily basis. While we, as readers, know that Jon's parentage is not at all what CATELYN believes, she can only judge by the little information she knows and what's been revealed to her by Ned. From her perspective, her husband had an affair and expected her to simply accept the consequences in silence, under her own roof. In this context, CATELYN's resentment is not a product of pure malice, but a deeply human reaction, one from a proud, loving wife who has been hurt. I know that it can be easy to sympathize with Jon in this scenario, especially because he's just an innocent boy who's done nothing wrong. But I think that it's also very important to acknowledge CATELYN's emotional reality. In a society where a woman's honor and fidelity are the most important things to her, Jon's very existence threatens CATELYN's identity as Ned's loyal wife and mother of his trueborn heirs. And on top of that, people often don't acknowledge the very real physical threat that Jon's existence brings to CATELYN's own children, regardless of how friendly or close they might have been growing up. CATELYN's resentment towards Jon goes beyond personal hurt. It's also deeply rooted in real, practical concerns about the threat that Jon poses to her trueborn children in the society. In Westeros, bastards carry a very significant stigma with them, not only because of their illegitimacy, but also because they can pose a legitimate threat to the orderly succession of trueborn heirs. In Westeros, bastards are sometimes thought of as being born to betrayal, as they can potentially make claims to lands, titles, or power that rightfully belong to legitimate heirs. Throughout Westerosi history, noble families have learned the hard way that bastards can disrupt established lines of succession, even at the cost of lawful heirs. This is something that Cat is very much aware of in A Song of Ice and Fire, and that realization influences her interactions with Jon Snow. In A Clash of Kings, she tries to warn Robb about the dangers of legitimizing Jon, citing the example of Aegon the Unworthy, who legitimized all his bastards on his deathbed. She tells Robb and how much pain, grief, war, and murder grew from that. I know you trust Jon, but can you trust his sons or their sons? CATELYN is absolutely right to bring up these historical precedents, particularly the Blackfyre rebellions, which began with Daemon Blackfyre and continued through his sons for 5 generations. These rebellions were a constant threat to the rule of the legitimate Targaryen heirs, and they now serve as a reminder of how the consequences of legitimizing bastards can deeply impact an entire house, rippling blood and war through generations. Therefore, CATELYN's concerns are neither unjust nor irrational. Her fear that Jon or his children might one day challenge the inheritance of Winterfell is completely valid. In Game of Thrones, Jon Snow wanted nothing to do with Winterfell or power.
I don't want it.
But in the books, Jon does want this power. When Stannis offers to legitimize him and make him the Lord of Winterfell, Jon realizes he wanted it. He wanted it as much as he had ever wanted anything. I have always wanted it, he thought guiltily. May the gods forgive me. It was a hunger inside him, sharp as a dragonglass blade. CATELYN probably realized this hunger for power a long time ago, even if Robb was too blind to realize it himself. And so her fear that Jon might one day challenge the inheritance of her children's claims is completely valid. In a society where power and lineage are everything, the potential for a bastard to disrupt the established order is a real and ever-present threat. The final criticism that I want to address regarding CATELYN Stark is the one that blames her for sparking the War of the Five Kings. Some fans argue that CATELYN's actions, particularly her decision to kidnap Tyrion at the inn at the crossroads, are what triggered Tywin Lannister's retaliation, which eventually led to the torching of the Riverlands. Though it's true that Cat's actions played a role in escalating the conflict, I think that this view actually oversimplifies the origins of the war, and it overlooks the reasonable rationale behind Catelyn's choices at the time. First of all, it's important to remember that the tension between the Starks and the Lannisters was already simmering long before Bran fell and was nearly assassinated. Ned Stark and Jaime Lannister were beefing since the fall of King's Landing.
You served him well, when serving was safe.
And Ned's investigation into Jon Arryn's death, threatening to expose the Lannister siblings' secrets, was already setting the stage for conflict, regardless of Catelyn's actions.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win, or you die. There is no middle ground.
Therefore, Catelyn's decision to act was solely motivated by her belief that Tyrion was behind the attack on her son, and that belief itself was based on the information that she had at the time. It was Littlefinger who told her that the Valyrian steel dagger that was used in the assassination attempt actually belonged to Tyrion Lannister, and that's why Catelyn acted against him.
I lost this dagger.
To whom?
Tyrion Lannister, the imp.
This wasn't an impulsive or malicious act. It was a mother's desperate pursuit of justice and safety for her child. Catelyn actually did the right thing by attempting to give Tyrion Lannister a trial, affording him the opportunity to defend himself and for justice to be done properly and honorably. Although this entire process was a bit politically naive, it was not without reason, and Catelyn actually did things the right way in trying to get justice for her son. It was a necessary risk in her eyes, as the alternative, allowing a potential child murderer to walk free, was something that she simply couldn't accept. And while Catelyn's actions certainly intensified the conflict, it's important to also recognize that Tywin Lannister's extreme response, raiding the Riverlands, was disproportionate and fueled by Lannister pride, not merely a retaliation for Tyrion's abduction. Also, Littlefinger's manipulations played a very big role in orchestrating the events that eventually pushed the war into its boiling point. Therefore, blaming Catelyn as the sole instigator ignores the broader context of Lannister aggression, Littlefinger's political scheming, and the pre-existing animosities that were already pushing the realm towards this war. What do you think about Catelyn Stark's character? Do you think her hatred for Jon Snow is justified? Do you understand why she didn't want to legitimize him against Robb's wishes? Do you still blame her for the war? Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comment section, and if you like this video, you could click the thumbs up button and subscribe for more content in the future. Thank you very much for watching this video. Peace.